You must be shocked to know that there are some creatures that actually take off their head, place it on their laps, in order to braid their hair. Fasten your seatbelts as I share the mysterious tale of Bossy. In the heart of Oyo State, nestled among the rolling hills of Ibadan, stood St. Catherine's Girls' Boarding School. An institution steeped in tradition and history. The school was the hub of learning and discipline, where the girls who attended were not only groomed to excel academically but were also taught the values of leadership, resilience, and integrity. The school itself was a sight to behold. Its towering gates, framed by lush gardens, ancient trees, shading the pathways that crisscrossed the sprawling grounds and whitewashed the walls that glowed under the Ibadan sun. Inside the school there was a rhythmic arm of activity, girls crowding their dormitories to classrooms, from chapel to dining halls, their crisp uniforms swishing as they moved in unison, a sign of discipline instilled in them. And yet, amid the constant activity, there was one thing that never failed to draw attention, no matter the time of the day or the season. That thing was Bossy's hair. Bossy was unlike any other girl at St. Catherine, though she was quiet, preferring to keep to herself. Her presence was undeniable. She had a way of making people feel comfortable, as if her mere presence was soothing to those around her. The teachers noticed her because of her excellent behavior. Her classmates admired her for her kindness. And even the junior students looked up to Bossy as a model of how they too should carry themselves. But it wasn't just Bossy's character that made her stand out. Her hair was the talk of the school. Bossy's hair was unlike any other the girls had seen. It was thick, black as night, and shone with an almost unnatural gloss. It cascaded down her back in long, silken waves that glimmered in the sun and even seemed to shimmer in the dimmest light. Every week, Bossy would appear with a new hairstyle, an intricately woven braid, a crown-like updo, or twist, that were so perfectly done that the other girls could hardly believe they were real. Every style Bossy wore looked as though it had been crafted by the hands of a master hairstylist. Yet, no one ever saw her getting her hair done. This mystery became a source of endless fascination. For the girls at St. Catherine's School, who were used to spending long hours in the care of Iyabisi, the school's resident hairstylist. Iyabisi had been working at the school for decades, and was known for her skilled hands and sharp tongue. Every Friday, the girls would queue in front of her little salon, waiting for their turn to add their hairstyle. According to the week's announced style, the girls would sit patiently as Iyabisi worked her magic, transforming their unruly hair into perfect cornrows, braids, or buns. For some, this weekly ritual was a dreaded ordeal. But for others, it was a time for bonding, gossip, and laughter. Yet, Bossy never participated in this ritual. She never visited Iyabisi. Neither did she seem to have any interest in the hairstyles Yemi, the social prefect, announced every Friday afternoon. Yemi was responsible for setting the style of the week, and she took her role very seriously. She would march into the dormitory every Friday, a clipboard in her hand, and read aloud the hairstyle for the following week. Some weeks, it would be a simple style like cornrows, but other times, Yemi would announce something more elaborate like Senegalese twist or a complex braided bun. Whenever Yemi made the announcement, the girls would grumble or groan, knowing the time and effort it would take to achieve the perfect look. But Bossy would simply smile politely and nod, never once showing any concern for how she would achieve the style. One night, long after the dorm lights had dimmed and the chatter of the other girls had quieted, Bossy sat upright in her bed. She glanced around the room, making sure everyone was asleep. The soft snores of her roommates filled the air. Bimbo, her closest bunkmate, was snuggled deep under her blanket. Her back turned slowly. Bossy slipped out of the bed. She tiptoed across the cold tile floor and out of the dormitory. The corridors of the school hostel were airy at this hour. The faint sound of rustling trees from nearby forest. The only noise breaking the silence, Bossy crept quietly to the school bathroom, which was empty and cold. She locked the door behind her and exhaled slowly, her breath visible in the chilly air. In the dim light, she reached up to her head and twisted her neck gently. It came off smoothly, like a puzzle piece being removed. She set her head on a lamp. And with the dexterity of a master braider, she began to braid her hair. Her fingers moved with skill and precision, weaving the strands into the tight, intricate pattern Yemi the social prefect had announced that Friday. It was an almost otherworldly sight, Bossy's body, headless but serene, walking methodically while her head rested peacefully on her lap. Her face was calm, her eyes closed, as if in meditation. There was a faint humming in the air, an ancient lullaby that seemed to echo from Bossy's lips, though her mouth never moved. And come Monday morning, Bossy's hair would always be done perfectly, flawlessly, and always in a way that made the other girls' efforts seem amateurish by comparison. How does she do it? The girls would whisper to each other, in hushed tones, as they watched Bossy glide across the courtyard, her hair glistening in the sunlight like strands of polished obsidian. Does she have a secret stylist? Does she wake up at dawn to do it herself? These and more were the thoughts of other girls. But no matter how much they speculated, no one could figure it out. Bossy never revealed the secret, and the girls were left to marvel at her hair week after week as if it were some kind of mystical phenomenon. Bimbo, Bossy's closest bunkmates, had once been a friend. The two girls had arrived at St. Catherine around the same time and had initially bonded over their shared experiences of adjusting to the rigors of boarding school life. Bimbo had admired Vi for her grace and quiet strength, and the two had spent many nights whispering in the dark, sharing stories about their families and their dreams for the future. But as time went on, something changed. Bimbo began to notice how the other girls gravitated towards Bossy. It wasn't just her hair, although that was certainly a big part of it. It was the way Bossy seemed to effortlessly command attention even when she wasn't trying. The teachers praised her for her neatness, her academic performance, and her good behavior. The girls wanted to be a friend, to be close to her, to soak up whatever magic it was that made her so special. Bimbo, on the other hand, felt herself fading into the background. She was beautiful in her own right, with soft, delicate features and a warm smile. She was intelligent and witty, often making the other girls laugh with her quick comebacks and her sharp observations. But when Bossy was around, it was as though Bimbo never existed. The other girls barely noticed her, their eyes always drifting back to Bossy, as if drawn by some invisible force. At first, Bimbo tried to ignore the growing jealousy that bubbled within her. She told herself that it didn't matter that she and Bossy were friends and that friendship was more important than popularity. One afternoon, Bimbo decided she had had enough. She went to a hair salon outside the school and paid a hefty sum to have her hair done in the latest style. When she returned to school, she was certain she would be the talk of the dormitory. But when she walked into her room, the girls barely glanced at her. Instead, they flogged Bossy, who had just finished her new hairstyle for the week. It was a dazzling crown braid that made her look like a queen, and the girls couldn't stop gushing about it. Bimbo's heart burned with jealousy. She glared at Bossy. Her hands boiled into fists at her sides. How did Bossy manage to outshine her every time? Bimbo had to know Bossy's secrets. She began to observe Bossy closely, following her discreetly whenever she could. She stayed up late, pretending to sleep, hoping to catch Bossy in the act of stalling her ear. But Bossy never moved until well after midnight, long after Bimbo had drifted off. But as the months passed, the jealousy became harder to suppress. It gnawed at her, making her bitter and resentful. She began to distance herself from Bossy, no longer sharing late-night whispers or joining her for walks around the school grounds. Bossy, for her part, seemed to notice Bimbo's change in behavior. But she said nothing. She continued to be polite and kind, always greeting Bimbo with a smile. But the warmth between them had faded. Bimbo, once Bossy's closest confidant, now watched her from afar, consumed by a burning need to know Bossy's secrets. The Bossy's obsession with Bossy's hair reached its peak one Friday afternoon, when Yemi, the social prefect, announced that the style for the week would be a complex braid pattern known as the waterfall crown. The style required precise parting, intricate braiding, and an almost impossible level of symmetry. The girls groaned in unison, knowing that even Iya Bisi would struggle to achieve perfection with such a difficult style. But when Bossy smiled at the announcement, as she always did, something inside Bimbo snapped. That night, after light out, Bimbo lay in her bed, staring up at the ceiling, her mind racing. She had to know how Bossy did it. She had to uncover the secrets that had eluded everyone else at St. Catherine's, and she was willing to do whatever it took to find out. As the dormitory fell into silence with only the soft snores of the other girls breaking the stillness, Bimbo remained wide awake, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that Bossy always waited until the dead of the night to stall her hair. Bimbo had stayed up many nights, pretending to sleep, hoping to catch Bossy sneaking out to some hidden corner of the school to walk on her ear. But Bossy had never moved, at least not while Bimbo was awake. Tonight though, Bimbo was determined to stay awake no matter how long it took. She watched as the minutes ticked on the clock, her eyes growing heavy but her resolve unshaken. Finally, sometime past the midnight, she heard a soft rustling from Bossy's bed. Her heart leaped into her throat as she watched Bossy slowly sit up, glancing around the room to make sure everyone was asleep. Bimbo closed her eyes just enough to appear asleep, but kept them open enough to watch Bossy's movement. She saw Bossy slip gently out of bed, her bare feet making no sound on the cold tile floor. Bossy moved with the grace of a dancer, her long nightgown trailing behind her, as she glided towards the door. Bimbo waited until Bossy had left the dormitory before slipping out of the bed herself. She tiptoed across the room, careful not to wake the other girls, and followed Bossy down the darkened hallway. The school was airy at this hour, the shadows stretching across the walls like long thin fingers. The only sound was the faint rustling of the trees outside, carried by the wind. Bossy moved quickly, a figure disappearing around the corner. And Bimbo quickened her pace to keep up. She followed Bossy all the way to the school's communal bathroom, where Bossy slept inside and closed the door behind her. Bimbo's heart pounded in her chest as she approached the bathroom door. She hesitated for a moment, unsure of what she might find on the other side. But her curiosity was stronger than her fear, and she slowly pushed the door open, peeking inside. What she saw made her blood run cold. There, in the center of the bathroom, sat Bossy, her body headless. Her hands moved with inhuman precision as they braided her hair, weaving the strands into the intricate waterfall crown hairstyle that Yemi had announced earlier that day. Bossy's breath caught in her throat as she pressed her back against the cold bathroom wall, her eyes wide with disbelief. She blinked several times, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. But no matter how hard she tried, the image of Bossy's headless body, braiding her own ear with eerie precision, remained unchanged. Bossy's head rested on her lap, her eyes closed, a serene smile grazing her lips as if she were in a deep, peaceful sleep. Bimbo stood frozen, her legs trembling beneath her. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, fear, confusion, and a strange creeping sense of awe. How was this possible? How could Bossy do something so unnatural, so terrifyingly beautiful? Was this some kind of dark magic, or has she stumbled on something far more ancient and mysterious? These were the thoughts that were going on in Bossy's head. The faint humming that filled the room grew louder, and Bimbo realized it was coming from Bossy. The sound wasn't coming from her lips, but from the very air around her. It was a melody so soft and haunting that it made the air on Bimbo's arms stand on end. It was an ancient lullaby, one that seemed to carry the weight of centuries within its notes. The melody wound through the air, twisting like the braids Bossy's nimble fingers were weaving. Bossy's fingers moved with incredible speed, her hands deftly manipulating a thick, glossy hair into the waterfall crown that the other girls had dreaded attempting. The braids seemed to almost form themselves, as though Bossy's hands were merely guiding some invisible force that moved the strands together. The lacquer couldn't look away. It was hypnotic. The way Bossy's headless body moved with such grace. Such is, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for her. Then, suddenly, Bossy's head twitched, her eyelids fluttered open, her eyes, which was as dark as the night sky, fixed themselves on Bimbo. The humming stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence that seemed to stretch out for an eternity. Bimbo's heart raced, as Bossy's head, still resting on her lap, turned slightly to face her. A soft chuckle escaped Bossy's lips, a sound that sent chills down Bimbo's spine. The bathroom turned to silence. Once just a mundane place where the girls of St. Catherine freshened up now felt like something out of a nightmare to Bimbo. "Well," Bossy said softly, a voice as calm and as steady as ever, though her head was still detached from her body. "I suppose you finally discovered my secrets," Bossy said to Bimbo. Bimbo felt her legs buckle beneath her, as the weight of Bossy's words sank in. She wanted to scream, to run, and to flee from this horrifying scene. But her body wouldn't cooperate. She was paralyzed, trapped in the presence of something far beyond her understanding. Bossy, still sitting serenely, began to lift her head with one hand, while the other continued to finish the final touches of the braid. Her movements were gentle, almost tender, as though she were handling a precious artifact. She brought her head closer to her neck, and with a fluid motion that defied explanation, she reattached it. Her neck made a soft clicking sound as her head settled into place. And Bossy blinked once, twice, before standing up gracefully. Bimbo, still on the floor, watched in stunned silence. As Bossy walked towards her, Bossy knelt down, her eyes meeting Bimbo's with an expression that was both annoying and oddly compassionate. Bossy whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "But now that you have," she trailed off, her gaze steady, but unreadable. Bimbo swallowed hard, her throat dry, her mind raised with questions, but no words came out. She could only stare up at Bossy, her heart pounding in her chest, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Bossy smiled faintly, her fingers brushing against Bimbo's cheek, in a gesture that was both comforting and unsettling. "You must understand," Bossy continued, a tone gentle, but frank, "this is not something that you can share. No one would believe you anyway." Bimbo felt a shiver run down her spine at Bossy's word. There was a strange certainty in Bossy's voice, as if she knew exactly what would happen if Bimbo ever tried to tell anyone what she had seen. Bimbo realized in that moment that Bossy was right. Who would believe such a story? The girls at St. Catherine would think she had gone mad. Even if she could somehow explain what she had witnessed, the truth was too bizarre, too impossible for anyone to accept. Bossy stood up, her hand leaving Bimbo's cheeks, and turned towards the door. "Go back to bed, Bimbo," she said softly. "You've seen enough for one night." Bimbo remained frozen in place for several long moments. Am I still reeling from the event? Based on the nuanced developments that have just unfolded. Finally, she forced herself to stand, her legs wobbling beneath her. She glanced at Bossy one last time, unsure of what to say or do before quickly retreating from the bathroom and hurrying down the hallway. She didn't stop until she was safely back in her bed. Pulling the covers up to her chin, as if they could protect her from the strange, terrifying world she had just been thrust into. Her mind raced as she lay there in the dark, replaying the scene over and over again, trying to make sense of it. But there was no sense to be made. Bossy's secrets defied all logic. Sleep didn't come easily for Bimbo that night. She lay awake for hours, her heart still pounding in her chest. Her mind consumed with the image of Bossy's headless body, braiding her ear in the eerie silence of the bathroom. She wondered how long Bossy had been doing this, how long she had kept this dark secret, hidden from everyone at St. Catherine's. The next morning, when the girls began to stir in the dormitory, Bimbo felt as though she were in a daze. Her body moved on autopilot as she dressed, still clouded with the memory of the previous night. She could hear the other girls chattering excitedly about the upcoming assembly, their voices bright and full of energy. But Bimbo felt as though she were moving through a fog, her senses dulled by the weight of the secret she now carried. When Bossy appeared at breakfast, her hair styled perfectly in the waterfall crown hairstyle. The other girls crowded around her as they always did, praising her for her skill and beauty. "Bossy, how do you do it?" one of the girls asked, her eyes wide with admiration. "It's like magic." Another girl said to Bossy. Bossy smiled a usual mysterious smile, her dark eyes flickering briefly towards the Bimbo before she replied, "I just have a way with my hands, I suppose." Bossy felt a chill run down her spine at Bossy's words. There was something almost sinister in the way Bossy said it, as if she were daring Bimbo to speak up, to reveal the truth of what she had seen. But Bimbo remained silent, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't say anything. Not now, not ever. The truth was too dangerous, too unbelievable. And so, Bimbo kept the secret to herself. She watched from the sidelines as Bossy continued to move through the school. With the same quiet grace she always had. But now, Bimbo saw Bossy in a different light. She was no longer just the quiet, talented girl with the beautiful hair. She was something more, something otherworldly, and something that defied explanation. As the weeks passed, Bimbo found herself withdrawing from the other girls. She no longer joined in their gossip or laughter. She spends more time alone, lost in her own thoughts. Our mind constantly returning to that night in the bathroom. The secret she carried felt like a heavy weight on her shoulders. One that she could never set down. And yet, despite everything, they couldn't help but feel a strange sense of awe towards Bossy. There was something powerful about her, something that went beyond a beauty or a talent. It was a Bossy carried within us. An ancient magic, one that had been passed down through generations, hidden away from the world until now. Bimbo knew she could never truly understand what she had seen that night, but she also knew that she would never forget it. Bossy's secret had become a part of her, moving into every fabric of her being, just as the intricate braids were moving into Bossy's hair. As time went on, the other girls continued to admire Bossy from afar, never suspecting the truth that lay hidden beneath her calm exterior. Bossy's legend grew within the walls of St. Catherine. In the earthstones in the dormitories late at night. Some said she was blessed by the gods. Others believed she had learned her skills from an ancient witch, but no one knew the truth except Bimbo, who carried the secrets with her for the rest of her life. And so, the mystery of Bossy's beautiful hair remained unsolved, an enigma that will pass down through the generations at St. Catherine's. Woven into the school's history like a thread of dark magic that would never be unraveled. Thank you so much for listening to this tale. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.